Bookaholics, so welcome back to another reading vlog. It is the second reading vlog that I am doing in May. I didn't vlog for the first few days of May because I was reading all of the books that I am reading for book clubs and read-alongs, so obviously I'm already participating in live shows or Discord conversations for those, so I didn't feel the need to also vlog my thoughts. But last week I did start reading my Asian Heritage Month books, which I'm very excited about, and we're going to be continuing with that this week. Am I being a little over ambitious because I've added an extra book onto my already obscene TBR? Yes I am, but bear with me. I'm going to go through the physical books that I plan on reading first. So I am continuing my read of the Dandelion Dynasty, and I am going to be continuing with book 2, The Wall of Storms. This one is the second book in the Dandelion Dynasty, which is an adult epic fantasy series in which we have a conflict that is happening. We have a rebellion, an emperor is dying, and it is about who puts who on the throne. It's a power struggle, and we have a young man who has been essentially informed that he is in fact royalty, even though he's been a shepherd his whole life, and is going to become the emperor. Multiple factions that are trying to put themselves into power or into the grace of this person that is going to essentially become a puppet king. Steampunk machinery going on here in an Asian setting, and the Dandelion Dynasty is essentially a retelling of actual historical events. I am very excited for this. This book is substantially longer. The previous book was 600 pages. This one is a whopping 852 pages, which for most people would be really intimidating, but for me it's so exciting. I love books that are chunky, like chunky fantasy series, top tier. Can't get enough of them. Yeah, this is what I am probably going to be spending Monday through Friday reading. I am also, however, going to be reading The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. I am buddy reading this with a friend of mine from Discord. He's also an author, so his name is Steve Westenra, and he writes horror, queer horror. So anyone who wants to pick up some queer horror, would highly recommend. June's around the corner, just saying. We're going to be buddy reading this. I'm really excited. I really liked Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Very dramatic, but I really liked it. I read Fable last week, and I was mentioning briefly that I really like Never Let Me Go because it was kind of like pitched to dark academia. It's not dark academia really, it's more like a dystopian literary novel, but absolutely love it, and I am looking forward to now reading more by this author. This one I believe is a King Arthur inspired story. I think it's set during the time of Arthur, or it has links to Arthurian legend, and in it we are following a couple named Axel and Beatrice who set off through their troubled land to go find their son who they've not seen in years. I think that it is about how they come together both over their love for each other, their love for their son, and their desperation to find him. And I think that yes, we do see characters from Arthurian legend. The other ones that I'm reading digitally, so I am going to be reading The Death I Gave Him by MX Liu. This is a Hamlet retelling, I believe. I don't know if it's contemporary, but I do believe it is queer. The author is gender non-conforming and uses they them pronouns. This is also the Enby Book Club book pick for the month, so I'm really excited. The Enby Book Club is hosted by Jessie over on Jessie on YouTube, and if you don't follow them, I don't know what is wrong with you. They are one of the most incredible creators on the platform, on the booktinet, like on any platform, and I love them so much, and I am really excited to be getting into this book. As I said, I don't really know a huge amount more about it. I saw it on sale, I think back in January, and I was like, oh, I'll save that for Asian Heritage Month. And then literally Jessie posted that they were going to be using this book for the Enby Book Club, and I was like, yes, just yes, the stars are aligning. So yeah, I'm really excited about that one. Then I am also going to be listening to the audiobook for The Water Outlaws. It was on sale on Apple Books. I couldn't resist. It was £4 for an audiobook. I picked that one up, and I'm going to be listening to that while I knit. I am getting into knitting. I am learning to knit. It's going slowly. I am not very good at learning new things. I am one of those kids that in high school were one of the gifted kids, which meant that I didn't actually ever struggle to learn things. So I have never learned to struggle through things, and I'm trying to push myself to do that now. I have OCD, which makes learning new things really difficult. So because obviously like I want things to be perfect immediately. So between my perfectionist brain, my OCD, and then on top of that, me never really having to push myself to learn new things, I'm really trying to push myself out my comfort zone. And the way that I intend to do that is I intend to listen to the Water Outlaws audiobook while I knit so that I can kind of calm my brain. We're going to see how that works. A lot of the time I also just listen to vlogs and stuff. I find that I knit really slowly when I'm listening to vlogs because I will look at the screen, and I'm not dexterous enough yet with my knitting that I can do it without looking. I know eventually the hope is you get the muscle memory and I don't have to keep staring, but at the minute I'm still counting rows. I'm sure we'll get there. But yeah, so that's the vlog for this week. That's the plan. I have 4 books. One of them counts basically as 2 books in its own right, but I am super excited for these. I'm going to be starting the week with these. I think that this one would probably, I need to talk to Steve about how we're pacing this one, but this one won't take me very long. It's got very large font, and then it's not very long. I think it's under 400 pages. Yeah, 362 pages, so it shouldn't be too much of a difficulty to get through. So once me and Steve have figured out how many pages we're reading, I'll tab this one, and then this one again, it's going to take me at least 5 days, maybe 6 to read. And then the Water Outlaws isn't necessarily going to be for this week alone. I'm really hoping I can eke it out throughout the entire month because audiobooks are expensive. Starting an audiobook, I'm going to go start this one now, and then once I've chatted to Steve, because Steve's in the US, so I don't know if they're awake yet or not, so I will wait, and then once I've chatted to Steve about this one, I'll see how many pages we're doing and I will keep you posted. It is Tuesday. My kids are actually home today because the schools in Andalusia, which is where I live, are currently striking. They're striking because they want more assistance for kids with special educational needs. As a parent of a kid with special educational needs, I very much am for this cause. And obviously when there are strikes, the school is still technically open, but they are not teaching. It's just kind of like daycare for parents who have no choice but to send their kids to school. Obviously it's really hard on the teachers that are there because they're in reduced numbers. So a load of us mums who do have either parents that the kids can stay with or grandparents the kids can stay with, like for example I am here at home so I can have my kids at home, we've decided to keep our kids off to desaturate for the parents who literally have no other choice but to send their kids to school. I'm only saying this because if your kid's school ever goes on strike and you can keep your kid off, I know that it's your right to send the kid into school, but as someone who's worked in education, please, if you can, keep your kid off school on that day, just because it really does help, and teachers are normally striking to better the education of your children. Just random aside personal opinion thing there. Therefore, if you do hear a sudden clamour of children arrive, no you didn't. At the minute they're next door, they're at my parents', they promised some ice cream. I am now going to go through what I'm actually reading. So yesterday I did manage to read the section that I wanted to of the Wall of Storms, which is the second book in the Dandelion Dynasty, and I am now on page 120, and I would like today to get to page 238. I've tabbed the whole thing, marked it out so that I am reading a even enough portion every day for the next 7 days so I can get through it nice and consistently. So far I am enjoying that. It's going to be a hard one to talk about because it's such a complex series, and obviously the first book in and of itself is over 600 pages, so there's so much that has already happened that I can't tell you about just from the synopsis of the first book, let alone then by the end of this when I am an additional 800 and something pages in. I don't really know how I'm going to talk to you about this series, but I am still enjoying it, and I am going in with the different mindset of like understanding the characters, finding the characters interesting, admiring the author's character work without expecting to get too emotionally invested in the characters. They're more ones that are carrying me through on intrigue than through emotion. Then I am a little bit further along with, not in terms of page count, but in terms of daily amounts. I have read both Monday and Tuesday's sections of The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, which I am buddy reading with Steve, and we've not actually had a chance to talk because of time zones. I never really know, like I don't want to say anything until I know he's read it, because obviously he might read it in the evening or at night, which would then be the following morning for me, so I feel like I'm like gonna constantly be commenting like at least a day behind, so I haven't really had a chance to chat to him yet. But this one, it really does sink in a lot quicker than I thought thought it would. Because it's short, I understand, but because Kazuo Ishiguro has a really lyrical writing style, and it's normally it's very character driven, it's very thematically driven, the prose is normally the protagonist almost, and I expected that with this one, especially with it being like a really lyrical fantasy, but it actually did kick in a bit quicker than I thought it would. I'm also really liking the dialogue. I really think that at least Beatrice and Axel, which are our two protagonists, have really distinct voices in the dialogue, which is really hard to get across. So far I'm having a really good time with this one, and I really love the atmosphere. I think that Kazuo Ishiguro always does a fantastic job with atmosphere, and this one's no exception, and I'm super excited to continue on with this one. I'm looking forward to hearing some of Steve's thoughts when he's awake, because obviously it is morning here in Spain, which means it's the middle of the night in the US. So yeah, I'm looking forward to his thoughts, and that's where I am at with these two. I haven't made as much progress as I would have liked with my ebook, which is The Death I Gave Him. I haven't even finished my Monday section of that one, so I don't really have enough thoughts yet because I'm very early on. So initial thoughts are literally the writing styles are very compelling. I'm finding that very interesting. Normally it's so much easier for me to read an ebook, so I don't know why that's the one I'm behind on, but I think also because it's short, so it's not like with the Ken Liu book, and then because I'm not buddy reading it, so I'm not trying to keep up with sections like I am with Buried Giant, I think it's just also really easy for me to like lose track of that one a little bit. I think I'm like 2/3 of the way through the Monday section, and it's Tuesday, so I do need to play a little bit catch up there, but again, I'm not overly concerned. I'm a little bit behind, and that will probably be that one, and then Wall of Storms are going to be my priorities now today, because obviously I did read my section of The Buried Giant with breakfast. So I am doing well. I am happy with my progress. We shall see how I continue on. It is Wednesday. I have been filming. You may notice I look a little bit more presentable than usual. And while I'm at it, I thought, well, since I actually look like this, I might as well check in with the vlog. I am now Monday and Tuesday's parts down in Wall of Storms, which puts me at page 239. I still haven't even finished the first part of this. That's how long this book is. I am still in Whispering Breezes, which is the first part. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really invested in it now. And I don't know, I feel like this is that series that is just kind of like really going to steadily keep me going. You know, it's going to be like a nice decent train ride that you can just sit back and relax, and you know it's going to get you to your destination. It's kind of like that, and I'm really excited for that. So I am now I think because I've gone in with the right mindset and I know what I'm signing up for in terms of vibes and tone with this one, I have decided that I am really into this now. So I think it was just a mindset check that I needed to kind of adjust a little bit, and now I'm there. So I am very happy to be continuing on with this one. I am hoping to get to my Wednesday part by tonight, so that would be here. I have actually made some more progress with The Death I Gave Him, which is probably the one I've made the most progress with. I have caught up in the sense that I have now read Monday and Tuesday. I still need to read Wednesday, but I'm probably going to do that over lunch. Lunch will be soon. So I am very excited to be getting to that, because it's really starting to hook me now. I'm really liking what this author has decided is valuable from Hamlet, like the different aspects of Hamlet that they are weaving in versus what they are making their own. I'm really liking seeing how this author is playing with that, and I am really looking forward to the Enby Book Club discussion at the end of the month for this one, because I think they're going to have a lot to say. I think that this is definitely going to be one I end up really sinking into and thinking about for a really long time. This might be one I might want a physical copy of in the end, so that I can make other people read it. So far, I have not actually read The Buried Giant for today either. So basically, I am only on Tuesday's portion of everything because I was playing catch up with the death I gave him. That's okay. I did take some Instagram photos and stuff today, so that does mean that I made a little bit. Oh, and I also did some of my Aurelium journaling, which I'm sure I've inserted a B-roll for, and that does mean that I have been listening to the Water Outlaws audiobook. I am really enjoying that, actually. I really like the protagonist. I like that we have this woman who is stoic and sturdy, and the way that she interacts with these women, and the fact that she's found this workaround for how these women are being taught to defend themselves when they're actually being taught combat, but you know, that way their husbands won't disapprove. We do have obviously the misogyny that you would expect from the time period, but I think that's being handled really well as well. It's not there to be particularly overly irksome, and more just of an understanding of the culture and the society. It's not playing with you, it's just a matter of fact, which is annoying in its own right, but not in a way that is like exhausting. So that's where I'm at with all of my books. So I'm hoping, as I said, by the end of today to be on page 142 of The Buried Giant. I am hoping to be on page 364 of Wall of Storms, and I am hoping to read another, I think it's 40 pages I have left to read for the death I gave him. So hopefully I can play catch up with that today and then update you tomorrow, and I'll actually be all caught up and in a place where I'm actually reading the things on the correct day. Hey, it is coffee break time! So I thought I would check in with you guys. This is probably going to be a really echoey clip, and I'm going to have so many regrets, but alas, I'm here now. I have been working my way through my books. I don't actually have either of my physical ones on me right now, but I have read the next section in the Wall of Storms. I am now actually officially up to date. Today is Thursday, and I have read my Wednesday section because I read them in the evening. So I will be reading the Thursday section today. But I actually I went ahead with my other two reads. So I read the Thursday section for The Buried Giant, and now I'm pausing because my friend that I'm buddy reading it with, they're a lot busier than I am. They are studying and they are tutoring, so like they're working as well. I know how time consuming uni can be, so I was always letting him set the pace. He said, oh, I'm not at that point yet, and I was like, okay, well, where are you? And I'll wait. He's on chapter 3, I'm on chapter 5, so I'm just stopping until he's caught up, and I'll let him set the pace because it's so much easier for me to do. Also, I am just generally a faster reader, I believe. That's my dog going mental. But then we have the other book that I was kind of like pacing myself with, which is The Death I Gave Him. This is one that I have actually been really enjoying and haven't really been talking about because I don't really know how to talk about it. It's a sci-fi Hamlet retelling. We do have things like, well, not quite mixed media, but we have like messages that people send each other. This is like a brief amount of mixed media in there, and it's a kind of big corporation, and there's research, and there's kind of this tussle over the research instead of over a kingdom, which is really interesting to me. Some very interesting takes on especially the women. I always find obviously that Shakespeare, even though I think for his time period, Shakespeare, I genuinely think was writing some really revolutionary women. If you read The Merchant of Venice, you have Portia being literally the person that is acting as the lawyer, and she dresses up as a man to do so. I can't spoil Shakespeare for you. It's centuries old. I really enjoyed reading Portia, but obviously she doesn't hold up as being like a feminist icon today, but for her time period, she was incredibly revolutionary. I don't feel that way really about the women in Hamlet. I feel like even for his time period, the Hamlet women weren't necessarily anything out of the ordinary. I don't think that they were terribly written, but they don't really have much of a personality on screen personally. So I am absolutely fascinated by how this author is writing the women. We have Felicia, who is basically the same role as Ophelia, but she has so much more agency and so much more impact on the narrative, which I am really, really loving. The discussions around mental health, around abusive behaviors of like mentor or fatherly figures, people you look up to, the way that they can manipulate you and tell you what to do or think or feel. I think that was really good. The way that people can play with your emotions, especially when you're feeling vulnerable. All of those discussions so far have been really, really good. So I'm on chapter 16 of this one, having a fantastic time. I'm about 50% of the way through, looking forward to continuing. So I got a little bit ahead with that one. I will probably end up finishing that one soon now that I'm not reading The Buried Giant. That's obviously 50 less pages a day that I'm going to be reading until Steve catches up. So that does mean that The Death I Gave Him will probably take precedence. It does also mean that The Buried Giant will probably bleed into next week a little bit, which is a little bit unfortunate. So I don't know if I might put that down and start my other physical book. I don't really know exactly how I am doing this. I was going to listen to my audiobook this morning, but instead I spent the whole morning, not a whole morning, but like an hour of my morning listening to Stephen Arian's interview with LL McRae. So I could have been listening to my audiobook, but I would rather listen to my friends instead. But that was fun. I'll leave that linked in case you want to go check it out. It was all about how Lauren's journey into becoming an author, her influences, and what made her fall in love with fantasy. So if you're wanting to check out some new fantasy, especially self-pub, then go check out Lauren. If you're also wanting some Asian fantasy, as it is Asian Heritage Month, you should definitely check out Stephen's, especially his latest one, which is based on the Mongolian invasion of Persia, I believe, including some real historical figures combined with some fictional ones. So just a shout out to them because they have entertained me all morning. So I didn't listen to my audiobook. That was a really roundabout way of saying I didn't listen to my audiobook and I'm a slacker. That's where I'm at. I need to read today's portion of Wall of Storms, which will be my priority, and I might actually read that this afternoon when I would normally be reading Buried Giant. Well, actually normally read Buried Giant with my breakfast, but I didn't read with my breakfast this morning, as I said, because I was listening to the live instead. I haven't really gotten much done this morning, but last night I did overread. As I said, I read too much of Buried Giant and now have to stop. And then I read too much. Well, I read more than I had allocated myself of The Death I Gave Him. So I'm going to be prioritizing The Death I Gave Him and Wall of Storms today and tomorrow, and we'll see where Steve is at with The Buried Giant. And then the audiobook is normally just if I am doing something. So for example, later on I am hoping to go take some Instagram photos, and while I'm doing that I might play the audiobook for a little bit, but that one can literally last me the whole month. At the end of the day, audiobooks are really bloody expensive. I mean, I got this one on sale, it was only a £5, thank God, but they're normally so expensive that it's like, it can last. Let it last. I'm not going to keep buying audiobooks. So this was a really rambly update. I'm going to go now. I'm going to drink my coffee. I have fake Oreos. Living my best life. I'm going to go snack. I have also done in my ankle. Forgot to mention that. I've hurt my ankle. So going up and down the stairs is fun. So I have to make it worth my while. Hence why I'm rewarding myself with an Oreo, because I did the stairs. It means I can't do my yoga. Again, it seems to be a weekly thing at the minute, which is really annoying. But yeah, that's where I'm at with life. So I'm going to go now, and I will, I guess, catch you when I have something else to say about books. Or not, apparently. Apparently, I just talk about any random shit. Hey, Bookaholics. It is Friday morning. It's nearly 10. So I thought I would check in and update you guys. My Kindle literally just died on me because I was reading The Death I Gave Him this morning, and I kept getting the warning come up being like, please charge your Kindle, but I wanted to get to the end of the chapter, and I did, and then I was going to start talking to you guys, and then it died. So at least it let me finish the chapter. Thank you, Kindle. So that's that. But I am now nearly done basically with The Death I Gave Him. I read quite a bit of it yesterday, and then I read quite a bit of it today. I'm really liking it. I actually think that it's probably one of the best Shakespeare retellings I've read. That one, and what's the Anunnaki one called? The Raven Tower. I think are probably my favourite Shakespeare retellings that I've read. Actually, no, screw that, because I also love the Tessa Grattan ones. I really like fantasy and sci-fi Shakespeare retellings. Who'd have thunk it? So there's that one. I am really enjoying it. I obviously now I'm so far into the throes of it that like there's not much I can talk about for anyone who hasn't read Shakespeare, I suppose, and they want to go in blind to this retelling. I really love the corporate aspect that comes with this, which, you know, as a statement is very strange. Literally being like, I really love the way that this corporation works within the sci-fi for Hamlet. But alas, I really do enjoy that aspect of this story, and I think that it's one of those that is a really good modernization and almost futuristic take, obviously, because you've got the sci-fi elements of this story. I think that it really has adapted it in a way, not only in terms of the narrative, bringing it to the modern day or into the future, but also into the elements of Hamlet that were worth keeping, and which of the elements of Hamlet are too dated and kind of should stay back in Shakespearean times. And the decisions that the author made in regards to that, I think, were really, really good. So I'm really, really excited to see how this one concludes. I'm assuming it's going to be a bloodbath because Shakespeare. So I'm really excited for that. I still haven't made any progress with The Buried Giant, as I suspected, because so I did get a message last night from Steve, which I've obviously saw this morning because the time difference. He had gotten to chapter 4, so he's only one chapter behind me now, so I should be able to be reading this a little bit more over the weekend. But again, absolutely no rush. Like, I can go as slow as needed, so I don't really mind, and I'll just read that at Steve's pace. If I finish The Death I Gave Him today, which is entirely likely, I will potentially need to pick up a different book, because I can't really only read The Dandelion Dynasty, not literally in the sense of like I can't read it, but because transporting it around is quite annoying, and with my foot not being great, I don't want to keep doing the stairs and antagonizing it. So this is one that I kind of literally leave upstairs and only read when I'm upstairs. I would like to have like a book that I leave downstairs and a book that I have upstairs, because again, I've been reading The Death I Gave Him on either my Kindle or I can read it on my phone if I don't have my Kindle on me. I don't have one that's that portable if I don't have a digital book. That's where I am at. I have read my Thursday section. What is happening with some of these characters? Like, there is one character in particular from book 1 who I feel like she's had a huge personality metamorphosis. I'm halfway through this book now. Well, yeah, I'm halfway through this book, and like the characters have like really amped up. So this one is set, there is quite a time jump between book 1 and book 2, and you can really tell because the characters' principles and priorities have changed so much in a really fascinating way. I'm really, really liking that. I'm really engaging with this one a lot more. I already was from the get-go. The first book also has a lot of like tangents which aren't really part of the main plot. They're more like vignettes. They're like windows into other things that are happening, just to give you kind of like a fuller understanding of the world, which were interesting but not hugely necessary. And sometimes they go on so long that you would have lost a little bit of the thread of the main story. So that was a little bit of a detriment in the first one. But my biggest problem with the first one, as you guys know, was the characters. I didn't find them very compelling. I didn't find I was ever getting emotionally invested in them. They were definitely interesting, but they seemed more like an idea or a concept than a person. I wasn't engaging with those. Also, in the first half of the first book, there were no women, basically. I think there was one woman. We do see that amp up a little bit. Nowhere near as many women as there are men. This one is femme dominated. Like, the POVs that I am loving and the ones I'm wanting to read are all women, which is fantastic. I don't know, for some reason with this one I am engaging a lot more now that there are more women on page. So yeah, I'm having a much better time with the Dandelion Dynasty than I was. Something I'm rather grateful for, because these are rather large books, and I did think that I would be getting by on this series on intrigue alone and on like curiosity, which is great, but doesn't a new favourite make for me, because I do want some emotional investment for it to be favourites. And I don't know if it continues in this direction. It might change. I might become a lot more addicted to it. I am reading through it quicker. I am avidly picking it up more. It's less routinely and more out of desire. I am not reading it only in like my allocated time. A lot of the time, people kind of wonder how I manage to read so much, and it is because I have like a mental schedule for my books. I have OCD. I've mentioned this quite a few times. I have OCD, and therefore I overplan stuff in my head. A lot of people think that I am not very forgetful. I am incredibly forgetful. I am really organized. They're not the same thing. I have a good memory for like random facts and stuff, but like I will forget the shopping list if I haven't immediately put it somewhere specifically that I know my brain will remember it. I remember appointments, I remember important dates because I write them down, because I have a good timetable. I'm hyper organized with everything, and that includes my reading. So the way I can read so much is literally because I plan it, because I am organized. It's that simple. It's really not anything more to it. So I understand that my style of reading doesn't work for a lot of people because it is almost clinical, because again it's like scheduled in, and then it's only when it's a really good book that kind of takes over that I'm like, oh okay, schedule can go out the window, and then I'm at ease with it. So The Death I Gave Him has definitely done that. It's jumped ahead of schedule, and that's fine. And Dandelion Dynasty seems to be now engaging me enough that I am wanting to read it outside of its like allocated schedule in my mind. So that's really cool. As I said, don't know if I'm going to pick up another book because of me slowing down Berry Giant. We shall see. It depends on if I finish The Death I Gave Him and how my leg is doing by the time I've done that. But that is it for this one. So hopefully tomorrow I will be able to bring you some more updates. Hopefully I'll have finished something as well. And then I can let you know what my final decision on an additional book looks like. So this is the first time I've filmed without a tripod in I don't even know how long, but my niece broke the like phone adapter for my tripod on my downstairs tripod, and again, poorly leg. Definitely not going to be going up and down the stairs. So we're gonna see how this goes. I'm sorry about the imminent shaky cam. I have finished The Death I Gave Him. It's Saturday, by the way. I finished The Death I Gave Him yesterday. That's got a 5 stars from me. It's like it's not a really 5 stars, but it's a 5 stars, you know, like it's a solid, like decent 5 stars. I had a good time with it, kind of 5 stars. I enjoyed that one actually. It was definitely one that had a lot of intrigue going on. It's definitely a fantastic take on Hamlet. It's entirely possible as well that the reason it's not an absolute new favourite is because just Hamlet isn't particularly a favourite Shakespeare story of mine. It might be that. I am unsure. It had an almost thrillery vibe at the end. It was very nerve-wracking, and if you've read Shakespeare, knowing who's going to live or who's going to die is interesting, and the author played with the potential that you have a knowledge of Hamlet, I guess, because of then amping up the anxiety. But I think that if you've not read Shakespeare, you definitely benefit from that as well, because obviously then you know it's a tragedy, but you don't actually know how it's going to go down and who's going to end up on top, etc. So intrigue filled at the end there, very, you know, keeps you on the edge of your seat kind of story. Really enjoyed, would highly recommend. Then I am not too far away from the end of the Wall of Storms now. I am on page 604. So I've got about 200 pages to go. So I'm going to read this today, and then I will hopefully be able to be finished with this by Sunday, which would be nice. And yeah, still no progress in The Buried Giant. I don't really know if I should be picking something else up at this point. I think I'm going to start next week's ebook, because the last week of May isn't a full week. It's Monday to Friday. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit in 3 books, especially one of them being the last book in Dandelion Dynasty, in 5 days. That seems a bit excessive. So one of them is a novella, so I should be fine. But getting ahead of the game a little bit with the ebooks is fine. So I think I'm going to start that, which would be The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. Today we're starting The Book Eaters and going to continue Wall of Storms, and I might even get a chance to listen to a little bit of Water Outlaws, which I have not updated you on in so long. But yeah, I'm gonna go have my breakfast and I will catch you later. Hey vlog, it is Monday. I didn't update you at all yesterday. I was going to, and I was just having a lovely time with my husband and with my kids, and then lo and behold, it was night. and I didn't update you, so that's fine. I will update you now. That does mean that I have a longer update than usual, but alas, here we are. Did start another book. I did start The Book Eaters by Sunya Dean, which I will be talking about more in next week's vlog, or this week's vlog now that it's Monday, but you know, the next one that's coming, because obviously I'll be reading at the bulk of that there. But over the weekend I did manage to get to chapter 6. And so far, I am really liking this book. I really like the writing style and the concepts in it. The way that it borders on horror, the kind of creepiness that comes with it. This is the story of a mother and a son, and it's told in 2 timelines. The present day timeline, we have a mother who is trying to feed her son, but they come from these humans that are book eaters, and they are essentially like vampires, but instead of consuming blood, they consume books. However, every now and then you will have a mind eater instead, and they are like book eaters, except that they can only really eat people's minds. They can't eat books. So her son is a mind eater, so she is trying to find a way to feed her son, because basically her options are she brings him people that he can then devour their thoughts, and therefore they kind of become a shell or a vegetable, or she lets him starve, or she hands him over to her kind and they have him put down. Obviously the latter 2 options are just a no-go for her son, so she brings him people to devour, and it's how she's trying to manage this. And there's the hope that there is this family that used to have a few mind eaters that found a way to feed mind eaters without them having to consume people, so she's reaching out to try and see if there's something she can do to save her son. In the past timeline, we are following her as she grows up in this society, in this isolated community up north, in a kind of old country estate manor house. So obviously the past timeline is giving us a bit more context for who she is and who her people are and etc., which was really cool. So far I'm having a really good time. I'm enjoying both timelines equally as well. Sometimes when you have 2 timelines or 2 perspectives or whatever, you can kind of feel more attached to one than the other, and I genuinely did think that I would be more attached to the present day timeline, because I really love reading about mothers. Ever since becoming a parent, like, I have just loved reading about parenthood, and mothers are just literally some of my absolute favorite characters. I might do a video on just all of my favorite mother characters, or books that have mothers as protagonists maybe. Absolutely wonderful book so far, and I am enjoying both timelines equally, and I look forward to continuing. I did also manage to finish The Wall of Storms, which means that I am now halfway through the Dandelion Dynasty. Not really in terms of page count, but in terms of books, I am now halfway through the Dandelion Dynasty, and I am so happy to say that this book was an incredible step up from book 1. I had an amazing time with this. Towards the end, when shit hits the fan, oh my god, there's a splatter everywhere. It was incredible the way that this amped up, the way that you have some reveals and some I suppose would they count as plot twists, and the way that things fell at the end of this, and how excited I am to get into the next book. I loved this. I didn't end up giving it 5 stars because the first half of the book, it felt kind of a little bit like I needed to get reacquainted with these characters, because there's been so much time in between book 1 and book 2, like within the book, because of this time jump. By the end of it, you kind of understand, and it does feel organic, but when you first come into the book, it's just like, how are these the same characters? And it takes you a while, and then afterwards you kind of realize that it's just like they have all of these traits that they have picked up from the roles that they kind of ended up in at the end of book 1, have then changed who they are, changed their values, changed the things that they are willing to do, and their perspective, I suppose. I really liked that, but it took a while to get used to. I feel like I didn't recognize these characters from the get-go, so it took me a little while. So this one hasn't gotten 5 stars, but it's got a really high 4-star, and I think it was only 2 points off on Core Pile from getting a 5-star, so not much. But I am really excited to get into the next book next week. So fantastic step up from book one. So to summarize the vlog then, basically I finished The Death I Gave Him by MX Liu, which I ended up giving 5 stars. One of the best Hamlet retellings I have ever had the privilege of reading. It was an interesting take. It was really action packed. It really kept me invested. It had a thriller, borderline horror vibe to it on a sci-fi backdrop with a Hamlet plot. Like, so many things that were really good. It's a low 5 star. It's not necessarily new favorite book of all time, but that book deserved every single one of the stars I gave it, and I am really glad that I read it. Really enjoyed it. Very heart-racing ending, very enthralling, and I'm so glad that I delved into it and just devoured it. I have also finished, as I said, Wall of Storms by Ken Liu, which I gave a very high 4 star, and I am really excited for the 3rd book, and I think that I am going to henceforth absolutely adore this series. 6 chapters, so about halfway into The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have been buddy reading this with my friend Steve, and we've just finished reading chapter 6. I am really enjoying. It's really interesting. It's definitely a thought experiment. It's definitely one that I'm really glad I'm buddy reading so I can discuss it, because there's a lot of emphasis on like memory and recollection. There's a lot of emphasis on identity and on society. It is kind of discussing things like the ongoing conflict between the Saxons and the Britons. So the Britons being the Roman colonizers versus the Saxons, who were the inhabitants of Britain prior to Roman invasion. And then we have some characters from actual Arthurian legend in here as well. For the most part, it's got so many epic fantasy trappings, but in a literary style. So we have ogres and dragons mentioned in here, but it's done in a very literary style. So I'm enjoying that aspect of it, and I'm excited to continue. I don't mind taking it at a slow pace because it means that we have time to kind of like savor each of the happenings. So I'm glad that I'm buddy reading it, so I've got someone to chat to about it more than I am about worrying getting through it at a faster pace. I have also continued a little bit with The Water Outlaws. I am now, I think, about 3 hours into the audiobook. I might be wrong. And I'm really enjoying that one. I'm not very far in schematically. I think it's a 20-hour audiobook. But the bit that I've read so far, I am having a really good time with. I'm really enjoying my listen. I think it's one of those that I'm just gonna gladly take my time with, and I am really liking our protagonist. I really like the way that she is written. I think that she's done in a way that makes for a very compelling character without them needing to be like boss girl all the time. She's strong and she's firm and she's stoic, but not in a annoying, condescending way, which a lot of especially men writing strong women do. Like the same way as the idea of like a man being strong should be more like Aragorn and less like Aragon. Like, it's not, oh, I can do this, I'm super tough. And it's more just like, no, like just a calm, sturdy presence. And she's more like that. And I really, really like that. So I'm excited to continue listening. Again, no rush with that one. Just whenever I've got some quiet time where I'm doing something with my hands and not with my brain, I can switch it on and have a listen. Because I have the house to myself all day, Monday to Thursday all morning as well. I can just like flick it on my computer and have it on. And I don't have to have earphones in or anything, which is also really nice. I'm enjoying my read through of that. And then, as I said, I have also started The Book Eaters, and so far it's going really well. I have every expectation that that book is going to be a 5-star read for me, and I am going to be absolutely devastated if it's not. But that is my wrap up for this week. So 3 books rolling over to next week, which is uncharacteristic, but I am excited. And I hopefully will be working my way through continuing the Dandelion Dynasty, and I've got another standalone coming up. So if you want to check out what I'm reading for me this week, for you, you'll see it next week, then do stay tuned and follow me in case you want to see any further updates, especially through this through the Dandelion Dynasty series. See how I feel about the other 2 books. But that is all from me for today, so thank you ever so much for watching, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye.